Okay, so now let's talk about brewing. We have our dry leaf in the pot. We have our water boiled. And the first thing I like to do is to do a quick rinse on the tea. So we just pour some of this water over the leaf, just enough to cover the leaf. You don't need to fill the whole pot. Cover it, flash steeping maybe for less than 10 seconds. And then we just pour it off. And the reason we do this, especially with aged teas, this is important because they've been in storage somewhere for a long period of time. And so one of the reasons we do this is to rinse off anything that may be on that leaf that we really don't want to drink, that maybe it collected during its time in storage. The other reason we do this is to wake up the leaf, just to give it a brief bath before we start to go into the formal brewing process. I'll also mention at this point that another reason that you might do a rinse and maybe do 2 rinses is if you're sensitive to caffeine. So all Chinese tea has caffeine in it, but the majority of the caffeine is going to be coming out in the first few steepings. And so if you do a double rinse, you're really going to be washing out a lot of that caffeine. So if you're sensitive to caffeine, or if somebody in your group is sensitive to caffeine, you can mention to them, hey, why don't you wait till the 3rd steeping to join us? Or if you're brewing for yourself, you can do 2 rinses and not drink it, and then start with the 3rd. Now, the other thing, as this is a time for waking up the leaf, the other thing that's important at this point is it's a first opportunity to really smell the leaf. So now that we've given it a rinse, bring the pot up to your nose, make sure not to touch your mouth to it or anything, but get your nose right up in there and give it a nice breathe in to the aroma of the tea. And when you pour the water on as a rinse, it does help to wake up the tea, and the aroma and the oils start seeping out, and you can really get a good sense of this tea. Now, when you first do this, you're really just going to get your first sensory awareness of the tea. For this particular tea, these aged teas, you're going to smell wet earth. It's going to smell like dirt, wet leaves, like a rock in the sun, a wet rock where the steam is coming off of it in the sun. So you'll get this sensory awareness. Now, over time, this also becomes very important as you get more experience with tea. You'll get a really good sense of A, what the energy of this tea is going to be, and B, how to brew it. It'll tell you how sensitive it is, how from just that small steeping of that 6-second steeping, how the leaf is responding to the water. So it will give you indicators for brewing and brew times, but this comes much later, so it's not something to worry about now. But I just want to impress upon you how important it is to smell the leaf. In the beginning, you're just going to get what you get from it, and don't worry about it. But over time, you're going to start to develop a sensitivity and awareness on how to respond for that. Okay, so now let's do our first steeping. In traditional Gong Fu, you may see people pouring the water over the surface of the pot. And the reason that they're doing this is to bring the temperature of the pot up to the same level as the water, because the enemy of brewing tea is the temperature dropping. You want it to stay hot. So in doing this, I actually make sure that my tea vessel, in this case this pot, is at the same temperature of the water, so that when I do my first steeping, which I'll do now, and pour the water on, and I'm not filling it all the way to the top. I'm filling it up to about here, and then you cover it immediately. Now, brew time is one of these things, especially with a tea like this, where you could brew this for 2 minutes right now and get a really strong brew, or you could brew it for 20 seconds and start off with a light brew. It really just depends on what kind of journey you want to have with a tea, but it's important to understand at this point, you cannot do it wrong, especially with a tea like this. You can't do it wrong. So I feel ready to do it, to pour it off, so I'm just going to make sure I hold my finger on the top of this pot. Usually these pots have a hole in the middle of the top here. Don't cover up that hole because you'll keep the water from coming out the spout. You just want to hold it so that the top doesn't come off, and either pour directly into your cup, or in the case of what I'm doing, a secondary vessel. And then uncover your pot so that the leaf doesn't continue to brew while you're in between steepings. Okay, so now the liquid magically disappeared because I drank it, and I will put that back on and we will do our second steeping. I'm gonna reheat my water here because I'm filming this and I just need to make sure that not too much time has passed before it's hot. In your case, you know, you'll just get a sensitivity of, you don't have to kind of turn it back on every time. You just get a sensitivity, make sure it's as hot as possible. And again, you know, you can keep an eye out looking for those fish eyes. There we go, fish eye city. Okay, so now I will just pour onto the leaf. And again, don't fill it up all the way to the top. Put the top on and wait. Now, this part of the process where you're adding the water to the leaf is actually one of the primary first times you can bring an intense intentionality to the energetic aspects of the ceremony. When you're pouring, you know, the meridian of the heart goes along the line to your heart. So just imagine your heart flowing through the water into the pot. And while the tea is brewing, you know, just you're putting an intention of what kind of medicine you want to put into that tea, or just connect with it. And now I'll pour this off. And by the way, don't try and get timing of steepings from this video, because while I'm talking, I'm definitely interfering with my normal process of how I do this. These steepings are longer for me than they normally would be because I'm doing multiple things here. But again, with this tea, you cannot do it wrong. It's really, try and listen. You're starting the conversation. Pay attention when you're pouring. Be intentional. And keep focused while you're brewing. Don't do other things while you're brewing. You're starting to listen to the tea and notice the difference in color between the steepings. Notice the difference in taste between the steepings. And this is going to help you understand as the tea evolves how things actually change in the tea. And it's going to help develop your sensitivity on its own. You don't really need to think about it. Okay, so now we're on the third steeping. I'm going to do the same process again. Make sure my water's hot. Hear the language of the sound of the kettle to help let you know when it's getting there. Okay, those fish eyes are there. And again, the heart connection, heart down the meridian to the hand, through the pot. And don't fill it up all the way. Lid on. And brew. And that's it. That's the basics. We're going to go over a little bit more details of the brewing process in a later lesson, but this should get you started to be able to start practicing getting your leaf in your pot, boiling your water, pouring the water on the leaf, waiting for it to brew, and then pouring into the pot. If you do want a little bit more specific guidelines on timing, I know that was helpful for me in the beginning. I'm a very logical person. So before I started developing an empathetic connection with the tea, it was helpful to kind of keep in mind, okay, like first steeping, let's do 20 seconds. Second steeping, let's do about the same. Third steeping, maybe a little bit longer, 20 to 30 seconds. So again, we'll get into this when we do brewing, but just so you can get started immediately, if you stick to 20 seconds on a steeping, you'll be fine. But pay attention to the color. With an aged tea like this, you're gonna want a darker brown color like this. If it's too light, then either your brew time is too short or you're not using enough leaf. Okay, so try and hit a target of this color when you're brewing each steeping. Now, depending on the tea that you've gotten, there's going to be a window of time when it's getting that dark. But again, we'll talk about that in the brewing lesson. Okay, thanks.